This is the pros and cons of living and working in Chile. Now, this is just my own experience. I've lived here for 6 years now. And, yeah, I've got a decent overall perspective, I think. I mean, I haven't explored every nook and cranny of the country, but, you know, in 6 years, you pick up a thing or two and you get an overall perception. So I'm going to share that with you here and try to be as fair as possible. And I'm only going to focus on things that outsiders would care about, people that are considering, you know, moving here or starting a business here, that sort of deal. Let's see, should I start with the pros or the cons? Let's start dark. Let's start with the cons. And then we'll end on a cheerful note. Alright, so trust is lacking here, I've definitely noticed. There's not much in the way of violent crime, but there's a lot of like white-collar, petty, scammery kind of stuff. So you gotta keep an eye on that sort of thing. If you're starting up a business, you gotta keep an eye on the books and keep an eye on your supplies. If you're in construction, you know, things have a way of vanishing. Low-tech, bloated bureaucracy. So this is something everybody notices, whether you're in business or not. Whether you're going through a bank or a government building, applying for visas or whatever. There's always a lot of paperwork involved. They still use typewriters, and now apparently this is connected to the first con that I mentioned, the low trust society. The idea is that typewriters are easier to trace forensically. You can, you know, take the piece of paper and figure out exactly who typed it out at what station in what building, that sort of deal. So these things are all connected. There's also a lot of fingerprinting and signatures. You got to go to the notary for everything. It's just a lot of standing in line and waiting for bureaucratic processes. They tax imports a lot, especially luxury goods and stuff like that. So electronics, if you're ordering things on Amazon, that kind of thing, you're probably going to pay a bit more for shipping. And then also just Spanish. The particular type of Spanish they speak here is a little different than other countries use, and I'm personally not a huge fan of it. It's a very subjective thing, but in general though, it's just a language barrier unless you're coming from a Spanish country. And then, okay, so the pros. Everyone talks about the nature, which is great. I mean, it's a very long country going from north to south. At the north end, you've got the desert, and then as you go south, you hit wine country, and then you get further down into the rainforest where we are, and lakes, and there's, of course, the Andes Mountains running all over the east side, and the Pacific Ocean on the west side, and hey, if you keep going all the way down south, you'll eventually hit Antarctica. So there's something for everyone. Everything's accessible. So I really do like that. I think pretty much everyone does. Geographical isolation. Some people like that. Some people don't. I kind of do for my purposes. Like, I will go back to North America and do development up there. And I do like having a place down here that's kind of a pain in the ass to get to, you know, like having some distance between all the busy goings-on of the greater world out there. Having some distance from all that is nice. It gives a certain peace of mind that you just don't quite get elsewhere. Just Chile by itself is geographically isolated by having the ocean on one side, the mountains on the other, and then there's a desert to the north, which is hard to traverse by land. So, I mean, flying in is really the only practical way to go. But, I mean, there's a downside to that. I mean, flights are more expensive and can take longer from a lot of the more common airports, and it's a trade-off. Some people like the fact that the distance and isolation can, you know, protect them in the case of any sort of a World War type of an event where people start chucking bombs around at each other and stuff. This is going to be far away from the action. You won't have to worry about stuff like that. What else we got? No license requirement for dealing in real estate. That was something that stood out to me because that's the business that I'm in. In North America, it's, you know, everyone needs to get their real estate license before they can legally start buying and selling properties and that sort of thing. So it's nice to not need that down here. Anyone can just drive around and take pictures of for sale signs in windows and start a website and start listing them and take commissions for sales. And it's a lot easier for first timers to get their feet wet and, you know, start building some experience. And low barriers to entry. That's a common theme. I like that wherever I find it. Low cost of private healthcare. That's another plus. The private healthcare system here is very accessible. If a foreigner shows up and needs some work done or whatever, whether it's dental or Ocular or whatever. I mean, everything's easy to find, the quality's good, and the prices are very low. There's a lot of generic brand over-the-counter drugs in the pharmacies and stuff too. Land is available to foreigners. You know, it's not like Mexico or, you know, other countries that restrict sales only to locals. Foreigners can come on down and buy land. That's the business we're in. We sell land, so, yep. One more pro that almost nobody talks about, maybe I'm one of the weird few that actually like it, it's the UF. It's sort of a secondary national currency. It's not used in public the way that the peso is. There's no paper or metal version of it. It's strictly a unit of accounting that's digital. But the idea is that it's a hard currency backed by a basket of consumer goods and industrial materials like metals that they mine here and things like that. But the idea is that it's a stable currency that will hold its value regardless of the peso's fluctuation. So if the central bank goes crazy and prints a bunch of pesos one day, that's not going to affect the UF. The UF is stable. Its value is tied to this basket of goods. I think more countries should do this. It's fantastic. It's great for us in real estate. It means the prices that we list for land, you know, those don't have to be updated tomorrow when the peso takes a dive. You know, it's a lot more reliable. It helps in doing business. But yeah, I mean, those are the things that stood out to me because of the business I'm in and the experience I've had. I hope that answers the question. As far as like the goings on in the current year, you know, we've got some civil unrest while they figure out if they want to make changes to the Constitution, and now we've got a pandemic on our hands and whatever. I'm going to say that Santiago is not the place to be. It's the capital city, it's the big gravity well, the big center of the country where everything happens. 6 million people, I think, maybe more, but I would not want to be there because that's where all the craziness goes down. Down here in Fort Galt, we're like a 10-hour drive south of all that. We're down in the rainforest. It's very nice here. We're up on a hill with the ocean view, and there's farmers markets all around. Like, if we wanted to just go down and buy some local produce or fish from the sea or whatever, that's perfectly doable. And with that comes a peace of mind. No one's worried about the supply lines getting cut off and starving in the streets and that sort of thing. Everyone's relatively self-sufficient as a community here, and I like that. I think people that come down for our project appreciate that. We've got great well water. We're not worried about, you know, things falling apart due to a pandemic like the one we have right now. Would I recommend it to others? Yes. If you're looking to do something similar as to what we've been doing, if you want to get into the real estate game for the first time, if you want some distance from civilization, you know, if you want to get away and do the pioneer thing a little bit and just have a adventure, yeah, this is a pretty decent place to do it. You know, even as I move on to do other projects in other countries, I'm going to keep a home base here. This is not just a do a job and then leave kind of thing. I'm setting up a long-term home base here at Fort Galt, and my family and I will always have a great place to come back to no matter what we're doing elsewhere. So this is definitely a long-term game plan, and I wouldn't marry myself to it if I didn't like it. So that, I guess, is the best testimonial that I can give.